But let's get onto the idea of self-governance. You've touched on it already. This idea of the kind of the trying to get your appetites to be fed, as it were, your desires, no guardrails, going for it. And I guess you could also say that from an economic perspective, we've seen lots of authority, power, control be centralized, whether it's to local government or to big business. Why do you think that we need to learn more and more how to govern ourselves once more?
Yes, say a word more about the differing experiences of somewhere like Germany and Japan, which are not ideal countries in every way, but they have industrial bases and we don't. And one of the reasons for that is that we drew opposite lessons from the Second World War. So Britain, somewhere like Germany, they came out of the Second World War, and we, amongst other countries, basically decided for Germany, we cannot have this all-powerful, centralized German state. We need to federalize Germany heavily. So, Germany has a very strong federal government. Similar thing happens in a lot of European countries where they draw similar lessons, and it supports the idea of subsidiarity. That's a big part of the Christian democratic tradition. And there's also an element of which, a sort of corporatist tradition is also living on in these countries, and that's taken up. So whereas Britain does a very different way, because we conclude from the Second World War that the effectiveness of the central state, the government centralized everything in World War II, it turned everything towards arms production, it won the war, it got us through. We need to now turn this machine that we built to win the war to win the peace. For a while it worked. We had mass employment. We had the NHS, the expansion of welfare, and in a society which was full of people who were, used to strong community bonds, trust, strong sense of personal virtue. People would have been ashamed to be overly dependent on their neighbours. It sort of worked, this national level community, but I don't think it's proved sustainable, especially under the kind of headwinds of globalization. And what that sort of resulted in is a very individualistic country with a very dysfunctional central state that doesn't really work for most people. So I think the importance of self-governance, whether that takes the form of local democracy, whether that takes the form of industrial democracy, it's all about people both getting something in as much as they're kind of maybe participating perhaps in the profit of the industry they're part of, participating in the decisions made in the local area, but they're also giving something. They're taking responsibility. They're saying, well, this belongs, I'm not just an employee, I'm part of this company. I'm not just renting in this area. I am a citizen, local of this neighborhood. I have an investment in what happens here. But I think it's very hard to persuade people to care or to participate in things if they don't get a sense of something back, and also if there isn't a sense of there isn't power there. So human beings, at the end of the day, we are hierarchical creatures. We respond to authority and power and symbols. And if everything about local government's a bit crap, a bit irrelevant, a bit marginal, no one's going to take it seriously. And if you look at countries which are successfully federal, whether that's America or Germany, just look at the regional buildings. Look at the grand town halls and the courthouses and the schools. The sense of grand. Whereas any British building built after World War II in a city, it sends the opposite message. It sends this is an administrative centre for somewhere else.
The point you're talking about, local democratic involvement, do you think that, because at some point Britain used to have what I think Burke and Ben Scruton popularised, called little platoons. So lots of people out busying themselves with things that they're concerned about in their local areas, and it is that which they derived both a sense of meaning. They figured out how they would relate to one another. They would sort out their own problems without having to necessarily go to a third-party arbiter of justice. And they had a modicum of control because of all this responsibility they took for their local areas. I just wonder if, because we've seen a very successful subversion of religion and the religious life, I suppose there used to be lots of people attached to the parish church at some point in the past, and all the various spin-offs that you had there, and has led to that decrease in involvement in local life as those economic things we've talked about have come to the fore. This what Michael Lind, I think, the American political philosopher, calls